What's up, y'all? This your girl, Miss Maggie T with Atlanta Falcons Nation. If you're new to the channel, I want you to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss another post from me. But I want to go ahead and get into the GM and head coaching candidates that we've recently interviewed up until Thursday evening, with a couple of more on the map as far as potential interviews coming up, depending on if time permits. Of course, all the interviews were conducted virtually, and they included Arthur Blake's family along with himself in those interviews. But let's go ahead and get into it. We'll start with the general manager side. Of course, you got to start with them first. We had Rick Smith. Currently, he doesn't have a role in an NFL, but he was the executive vice president of football operations for the Houston Texans from 2012 to 2017. Of course, he was the general manager for a lengthy time, 2006 through 2017. Of course, why it would work for him. He took over from Charlie Casserly and was responsible for all aspects of the football operations, including the salary cap, which is something that we definitely have an issue with the Falcons. Terry Fontenot. He's, of course, currently New Orleans Saints vice president, assistant general manager, and pro personnel. Of course, under him, the Saints were able to build a tenacious defense to go with that veteran quarterback and offensive weapons. He's been mixed in with acquisitions through free agencies, trades, and the draft. And, they built a great defense there. Of course, he's been with the Saints for about 16 seasons, and he had spent about 7 seasons as a pro scout before he was promoted. Of course, why it makes sense for him, the Saints have just been doing something right in the talent department. It's something that we do have to work on here in the Falcons franchise. Anthony Robertson, of course, he's currently with the Falcons as the director of college and scouting. This is his 14th season with the Falcons personnel department and his second as the team's director of college scouting. Of course, he began his Falcons career as a scouting assistant for 3 seasons before he was elevated to Southeast area scout, and then the team's Eastern regional scout, covering half the country in 2016. Of course, why it makes sense, because he knows his way around the talent-rich Southeast. Of course, he's credited with scouting Julio Jones, Keanu O'Neal, and Kevin Ridley. Those were good picks there. Morocco Brown. His current role is he's the Colts director of college scouting. Of course, Brown joined the Colts in 2017. He also worked with the Browns, Washington, and the Bears. With Washington, he was the director of pro personnel. Of course, with Chicago, he was the assistant director of pro personnel. He was also an assistant scout for Washington after serving as a scouting intern for the Colts. Of course, it makes sense for him because he has an eye for big-time talented. And next up on that list is Brad Holmes, Rams director of college scouting. Holmes, of course, he just completed his 8th season as a director of college scouting for the Rams, and this is his 18th NFL season. Holmes oversees the college scouting department and manages all scheduling and operations for area scouts. He is responsible for assigning cross-check coverage nationwide during the fall season, in addition to evaluating all NFL draft prospects nationwide. Of course, it makes sense for him because the Rams went from the bottom to the top during his tenure. He had the vision to see that Aaron Donald was a star despite not having the height requirements of defensive tackles. Now we're going to go ahead into the head coaching candidates. Raheem Morris, first up. Of course, Falcons interim head coach. We already know who that is. If you don't know, you must be under the rock. But before being with the Falcons, he was Tampa Bay's head coach from 2009 to 2011. Of course, he was named the head coach there at age 32. After leaving Tampa Bay, Morris went to Washington, and then, of course, he's currently with the Falcons. And he's worked with Mike Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur, and Dan Quinn. Of course, Morris has coached offense and defense, and he was the Falcons wide receivers coach from 2016 to 2018. Of course, why it worked for him, of course, he knows the team. He's be the first permanent black head coach for the Falcons, something that we haven't had, as well as Of course, the players do support Morris, and he's the most familiar with the roster. He knows who must go and who should stay. He has a working relationship with McKay, Falcons national scout Rustin Webster, and many more important things. Matt Ryan and Julio Jones both consider him a head coach in the NFL. So, hey, there you go. All right, but of course, we had Joe Brady. He's the Panthers offensive coordinator. He played linebacker at William & Mary and went to Penn State as a grad assistant. Was a low-level assistant with the Saints in 2017 and 2018 before leaving for LSU, where he rose to his prominence as the passing game coordinator and wide receivers coach. Why it works for him, Brady, who got on the NFL's radar after a spectacular 2019 season at LSU, in which he worked with quarterback Joe Burrow, also is reported to be a candidate for the Chargers and Texans coaching jobs. He went to the Saints for 2 seasons before having that magical season at LSU. As well as Eric Bieniemy, Kansas City Chiefs offensive coordinator. And then, of course, he's pretty much one of the very high popular ones that everybody's talking about as far as who they will like as a head coach. Of course, a little bit about his background. He's played running back at Colorado and was a Heisman Trophy finalist. He played in the NFL for 9 seasons with the Chargers, Bengals, and Eagles, was the running backs coach for the Vikings, and was the assistant head coach running backs in 2010. He coached Chiefs running backs from 2012 to 2017 and has been the offensive coordinator since then. Of course, it makes sense because he's a top head, coaching candidate for everyone at this point. Under him, the Chiefs have the top offense in the NFL this season in yardage and are 5th in scoring. And of course, the Falcons are built for offense and could use a booster. So, especially in that red zone. Let's see here. As well as Robert Saleh, current role as San Francisco 49ers defensive coordinator. A little bit about his background. After 1 month as a graduate assistant at Georgia in early 2005, he made the leap to the NFL with Houston, Texas. Of course, he was with them and then Seattle and Jacksonville before becoming the 49ers defensive coordinator in 2017. Of course, why it works for him, he makes sense. He make lemonade out of lemons. Even with mass injuries, the 49ers defense continued to perform at a high level last season. Of course, his unit finished 5th in total defense, 4th in pass defense, and 7th in run defense. Of course, the Falcons were not able to overcome injuries in the defense, and it's lingered all the way into 2019 from that 2018 season. As well as Brandon Staley. Current role is the Rams defensive coordinator. He was with the Bears from 2017 to 2018, and then the Broncos in 2018. He's in his first season with the Rams currently. It makes sense for him. Of course, the Rams had the number 1 ranked defense in yards, and can you say defense is something that we need? But yeah, number 1 ranked defense in yards and points allowed this season. Of course, maybe he can bring defensive tackle Aaron Donald and cornerback Jalen Ramsey. Probably not happening, but it would be nice. Todd Bowles, current role is a Tampa Bay's defensive coordinator. Of course, he actually interviewed previous to this for the Falcons head coaching job in 2015 when it went to Dan Quinn. Wonderful. Of course, he's a former NFL player who started his coaching career in 1997 at Morehouse, landed in the New York Jets job instead. After a promising 10-6 record in his first season, Bowles finished 24-40 in 4th season and was fired after the 2018 season. Of course, it worked for him. He's a veteran coach that the Falcons would have to listen to. His tough, no-nonsense approach would be a welcome department from Dan Quinn's brotherhood. His defenses have always been stout and tenacious. Also, he could perhaps bring in some, good offensive coordinators with him. But and it may even entice college teammates, more people that might be interested in coming over to play for us. Never know. Then Arthur Smith, his current role is a Tennessee Titans offensive coordinator, and there's a little bit about his background. He played guard in college at North Carolina. Worked his way up with the Titans from quality control assistant in 2011 to being named offensive coordinator in 2019 as well. And of course, it makes sense for him. Now, this was an upcoming interview, actually, so he hasn't been interviewed, but it definitely is upcoming. He runs the same type of power offense that the Falcons ran under former coach Mike Smith and offensive coordinator Mike Mularkey. Of course, you won't see any jet sweeps on 3rd and 1. The Falcons will have to find him a power running back in the mold of the Titans All-Pro Derrick Henry as well. And Nathaniel Hackett, his current role is Green Bay offensive coordinator. A little bit about his background. Hackett's first job in the NFL was as a quality control assistant with Tampa Bay in 2006. For some reason that 2020 is stuck in my head, where he stayed through 2007. He was a quality control assistant with Buffalo before going back to the college ranks to coach at Syracuse. Of course, why it makes sense for him. He has been with the Packers since 2019 on the staff of Coach Matt LaFleur, who was on the Falcons staff under Dan Quinn and offensive coordinator Kyle Shanahan. LaFleur was passed over for the coordinator position when Shanahan left for San Francisco after that Super Bowl as well. So, of course, Hackett, who has worked with Aaron Rodgers for 2 seasons, could bring back Shanahan's offense that helped Matt Ryan become the franchise first MVP. That being said, that's kind of all I have on the candidates. I know I kind of just went all in on these candidates, and I hope that you learned a little something from it. And tell me who you want to see as the GM and head coach. But until the next time, this is Maggie T at Atlanta Falcons Nation. And if you haven't subscribed to that channel, I don't know what you're waiting on. But to the next time, we are the nation, and I'm out. Peace.